Back in 2019, I came across an interesting listing on eBay. It was a phrenologist's report on a Bulwell girl called Florrie Webster from 1897. It consisted of a 3-page report and a couple of photos of Florrie herself. I didn't buy them, but I downloaded the photos and uploaded them to the Bulwell Photos Facebook page. And there they sat. But it always bugged me. What had happened to Florrie Webster after that report? So I decided to try and find out. I suppose firstly we should ask, what is phrenology? Well, to quote Wikipedia, phrenology is a pseudoscience that involves measurements of bumps on the skull to predict mental traits. It's based on the concept that the brain is an organ of the mind and that certain brain areas have localised specific functions or modules. At its best, it's pure hokum. At its worst, it's used as a tool to justify racism and class division. The report on Florrie, given by Madam Cook, late of Great Yarmouth, says the following.
The character of Miss Florrie Webster, as given by Madame Cook, phrenologist of Nottingham, late of Great Yarmouth, at Bulwell, December 6, 1897. This child has a very large brain indeed for her age, and is full of activity. She has a very restless disposition, and is not satisfied unless she sees and knows everything. To be kept in the dark does not at all suit her. She has large perceptive faculties, which give her the power to see and understand very readily. So at school she should do very well. She is well adapted for a school teacher, but she could equally be as successful in a business life, or as a clerk. Her temper is not one of the sweetest. She is apt to get a little bit too excitable. To train her well, you must be firm, but yet kind. She has a very pleasing manner, and as a rule will get on well with people generally. Undoubtedly you have found out that she is very fond of her dolls. She will be much interested in the dress they wear, and even now should be able to cut out their garments and fashion them after her own idea. She has great love for home and parents, and if she had to leave home for a short time, she would take it very much to heart. She is very mirthful and witty, when with people whom she knows, will say some very droll things. I take her to be a child who always sees the funny side of everything. Tune and time are fairly well marked, therefore she can be put to music at almost any time. She also appears to have a very good voice for singing. There is not the least doubt, although, whilst young will give you a certain amount of trouble in her training, but that she will grow up a steady and careful young lady. To dress well and prettily will suit her admirably, as she is a child who likes to have a good appearance. When old enough to choose her own dress, you will find she will have everything in harmony. I do not know whether this child has been brought up alone, as she is so very old in her ways, in fact more so than most children of her age. It would be wise to let her mix with children of her own age. She has a full share of language, and will not often be at a loss for words.
So what more can we find out about the life of Florrie Webster? Florence Annie Webster was born in January 1893 to William Webster and Clara Shaw, and was baptised at St Mary's Church on the 29th of January. William, born in 1864, and Bulwell-born Clara, born in 1867, were married on the 2nd of April 1891, with Florrie being born 2 years later, and her sister Doris Mary Webster in 1904. The 1901 census shows a family living here on Thames Street in Bulwell at number 34, with William being employed as a miner. Now we know from the photos on eBay that Florrie went to the Bulwell National School and in the year 1902 never missed a single day. Her father William Webster died at the age of 41 in 1905, leaving her mother Clara a widow and the 2 children fatherless. By 1911, Clara and the 2 children had moved to 65 Latham Street. The census also shows a boarder called Arthur Cottingham, a flower pot thrower from a Sankey factory. Further investigation shows that this was actually her brother, the adopted son of her parents. Clara and Florrie both worked in the lace industry, almost certainly at the local lace factory just up the road, where Bulwell Wildflower Meadow is today. Now, it's hard to believe that this local beauty spot in Bulwell 100 years ago would actually have been a lace repairing factory. Factory Road ran around the perimeter of it, and right in the middle was the lace repairing factory where almost certainly Florrie and her mother would have worked. Hard to believe it now though. In 1921, at the age of 28, Florrie, living I believe at 18 Dove Street, it's not particularly clear, married Samuel Alexander Wakelin of 279 Commercial Road at St Mary's Church on the 30th of April 1921. Now, this may seem a bit late to some, but you should remember that the war had only started 7 years previous, and it has only been over for 3 years. Samuel Alexander served in the Royal Fusiliers 58570 Private, and then the Labour Corps 654169 Private. He qualified for the British War Medal and the Victory Medal. The lack of a 1931 census means we lose track of a couple until 1939, where we can see that the two of them are living at 239 Coventry Road, where Samuel is employed in general provisions. And at this point, there are no children, and it will seem, for whatever reason, that maybe they weren't blessed with them. By chance, I came across this photo of 239 Coventry Road from the 1960s, showing a corner shop now run by E. Hopkinson. And although this was 20 years later, I can't imagine that the scene would have changed much over the years. The shop on the corner of Coventry Road and Gilead Street would have been about here. Florrie's mother Clara died in December 1964 at a ripe old age of 98. Samuel died on the 17th of June 1966, and although I can find no death notices, there is just this poignant message posted in the Nottingham Evening Post a year later. One sad and lonely year, quietly remembered every day. Why Florrie and Doris? Florrie Webster passed in January 1988, her sister Doris in 1995. And that's about as much information as I can find. There are no gravestones. Samuel, Florrie and Doris were all cremated, and their ashes scattered at Northern Cemetery. Florrie never moved away from Bulwell and lived her whole life within a few streets of where she was born. I would have loved to have shared some more photos of her family, but I fear that they just aren't there. Although if you do have a Webster or Wakelin in your family tree, and you do have a photograph of an Aunt Florrie or an Uncle Samuel, please let me know so I can update this and complete the video where possible. Other than that, thank you for watching.